guys, welcome back to the show.
Yeah.
Our guest is with us in the studio.
Like we said, a poet, an amazing person who has changed the narrative when it comes to that space. He's done a lot for himself. Pamilerin, a celebrated poet and editor, and whose works have graced prestigious platforms such as Poetry Magazine, Loway, and Frontier Poetry. He's a multi-award-winning literature figure.
Yes, and of course, initiatives like On Serious Collective, Fellowship for Emerging Poets, and Poetry Songwater. He is a talent, nurturing emerging talent and amplifying voices that needs to be heard. He's the author of Gospel of Depression and 3 other books translated into Igbo and French. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We're
Nice
talking
one.
poetry as a catalyst for social change, building bridges, breaking barriers. So, all right. So this is quite interesting because poetry is seen as a niche art form, you know.
Yes.
But your career proves it has a much broader impact. How do you think that poetry has the power to drive social change? Because poetry, you know, when we studied literature, when we did literature, there was lots of poetry in literature.
Yes.
And it can be abstract to a lot of people. So why do you think it has the power to drive social change?
I think poetry has a vital role. It can drive in our music. I'm going to start with music because that's what we're used to. In our music, there's poetry inherent in it. So, and in our movies, in the way we talk, our rhythm. So I think for us, or for me personally, the way poetry can drive social change is when we pick up a culture of utilizing it. I personally think there's a patience issue with our culture, you know, the attention span and all that. So the idea of being a niche thing, there's this interview I read by Kwame Dawes. It was speaking about how in Irish bars they play poetry. Not the way we play music, they play poetry. So you know, there are some songs, you listen to songs, you don't really know what they're saying. It doesn't stop you from enjoying it immediately. It does not mean you have to, everything has to be literal in that sense. But so I think that poetry is capable of social change. It's a useful tool once we're patient enough to let it do its work. Yeah.
And you take it all in. Now, it's interesting that you said this because you've created a lot of initiatives like the Chapbook Awards, and other initiatives that's like NND and co. And poets have had the opportunity and the platform to share their voices. Now, how do you think this affects the ecosystem? You know, it improves it? Does it improve it? Does it make it work? How do you think it's contributing to the poetry ecosystem?
Okay, our platforms like Poetry Column NND, Poetry Songwater, lots of them, Morimi Review. What it does for us is, in Nigeria, we don't have the traditional publishing system for books. Most books that are published are educational materials, academic materials, and for literature books that are published, we don't have enough structure, enough leeway to get access to them. Some of these books are ridiculously expensive. So for me, I take priority in, if you can do something little, it's better to do little than to do nothing at all. You understand? So in the beginning, we started with making the books digital. And so some of the people we've published, they've gone on to win amazing prizes, like Michael Emerson, he was the winner of Silverman Prize last year. Otuko Mukuru, winner of Brunel Prize 3 years ago. So we publish these people even before they're well known, so to speak, in a sense, in our niche.
All right, so just to follow the conversation, now, poetry sometimes can be seen as inaccessible, elitist. But people forget that these were things we did when we were in primary school. So why is it not suddenly termed as elitist? But how can you think poetry or poems can be more relatable, you know, especially to everyday people in addressing everyday issues?
I get that. I'll circle back to what I said earlier. Other than that, I also think the way poetry is being taught in our schools, that's another challenge. Because if you're giving poems, if you're teaching poems in a way that they have to line by line tell you exactly what this person was thinking when he was writing, I mean, if I write a poem and there are multiple readings of it, I'm impressed, I'm glad, I'm happy about that. But when there's this academic sense though it's really good, really nice. But yes, but not everybody is going to be in a class reading. I already talking about literature earlier. I didn't study literature.
Wow.
Yes, I know. I had to read myself. I did accounting. So after class, you go to the library, go read the books that the literature students don't want to read, and just you enjoy. So
it was just a personal love for it.
Yes, yes. So I think that the elitist sense, there are ways to, and I think there are people currently doing that, bringing it into the public space. You know, IB Quick, yeah? Yes, people like that. There's IB Quick, there's Faith Buyashore, there's lots of people.
Lots of them now that are emerging,
yes,
even in
Christy,
the indigenous
Christy
language.
Too. Yes, yes. So, Aremo Gemini, that's another person. He does, you know, spoken word in Yoruba. Now, that's the thing. When people are accused of being elitist, people like Aremo Gemini are being accused of being, you know, they're also blocking people out, people who can't speak Yoruba, so to speak. Yeah. You understand? Exactly. So it's like there's one accusation for people who write poems on page. There's another accusation for people who do spoken word poetry.
I think every sector has that anyways. They can never be truly satisfied.
Yes.
But I mean, looking at the Nigerian landscape now, you see that you've given a lot of exposure platforms to spotlight emerging voices. Yeah. Now, how do you think that Nigerian literary landscape is right now? What do you think needs more attention as regards this landscape?
I would say the publishing structure. There are people doing amazing things, but we need more hands. For the publishing structure to be excellent, to be world-class, the government has to step in. They need to step in one way or the other. Because in the US...
their list is very long, where they all need to step in.
Okay, I agree. I'm just saying, for instance, in the US, there are grants. In the US, in the UK, in Australia, there are grants yearly, right? So those are the things that... And also, there are subsidies. So it's not just for subsidy. There should be art, you know, art subsidy for the publishers. There should be subsidy for what they're doing. Those are incorporation of contemporary poets into the syllabus. Because if people are writing today, if you check the syllabus, our amazing legends are still there. But there's a way to classify it so that, okay, what the people writing in 2008, we should have started teaching their works right now in secondary schools. But they hardly do that. So there needs to be that update, that review, the publishing structure, the educational system, funding. Yes,
there's a lot. Nice. I like how you address this issue. But let's talk about the creative process. Just to, you know, when writing, because it seems very complex. It might be complex to write, but what's the process like, you know, that addresses complex issues like climate change, health situation, mental health, which of course is a thing right now
into the space,
into society now.
It's always been a thing. It's just getting more leeway, in a sense. The writing process is unique for each person. Yes. So when you're addressing a complex subject like that, I believe that it's important that you don't centralize yourself. If you're writing about people, for instance, if you're, let's talk, acknowledge your privileges in your writing process. If you're going to write a personal poem, say in the voice of someone who lost their parents, someone who was killed in a protest, there is a way that you don't need to sensationalize the violence. You understand? Then for mental health, you don't need to sensationalize the idea of dying, so to speak, right? Right? So
those are supposed to be sensational. Death is not.
Oh my God! Go
death is death. It's not.
If you go on Pinterest, you'd be surprised. Yeah. Pinterest. I mean, you know, there's this this goth. I mean, it's a whole thing where teenage angst ties into this need, this existentialist. Oh, I don't want to.
I don't know. It's good device of this.
Okay, yes. So I don't want to be here. All those sort of things. So when you're writing poems, you have to acknowledge that you don't use a broad brush to just do it that way. Okay. If that makes sense.
It makes sense.
Okay.
But, I mean, if it doesn't, it's okay too. You know, but yes, let's talk about what you've published. You published poetry a couple of times in National Daily.
Yes.
And it was quite unique. Now, what was the feedback you got from the publishers, I mean, from what you published? And why do you think mainstream platforms are like newspapers are very important for poetry publications and evangelism? Because how many people read newspapers now?
Fair point. We newspaper crew were debating.
I'm still in the newspaper crew.
You're also newspaper crew.
But you see, it's just very sad that everyone is saying that they are now on E. Everything is E.
Very short, and
this one is not even about attention span. They just want it on their phone. Less things to carry.
Even with it being on their phone, people are very distracted.
Yeah, you just need news in brief.
News in brief. So, I mean,
just the headlines.
That's why we never get the facts right, because you get your news in brief and you build the rest of the story all the way by yourself.
Yeah, and that's why the headlines are very also,
sometimes the headlines don't even make you hit the story on the head. It's just...
Yes. Well, for me, regarding poetry, where newspapers can come in, I believe that we should start from replication. When we see a system that works, we try to replicate, then fine-tune to our system. So in the US, for about 18 years, they had this American Life in Poetry column. So every week, they would publish an American poet in all the newspapers for free. Yes. And they did that for 18 years. So that means if you're I'm using Nigeria now, if you're in Lokoja, you're going to read this particular poet. Everybody reads it, regardless of the newspaper you buy. I mean, that's a reach. That's a wide reach. So we publish poets in Nigerian News Direct every week.
Wow.
So wherever our paper goes, you're published there.
That's nice.
Yes.
That's nice.
And I hope that, I mean, this is why I drop ideas. I don't drop ideas because I want to do, nobody can do everything.
No,
so I just put out the ideas that whoever is interested, please do it. And that's why even all the other magazines that, we end up creating, the system I use is this, someone was asking me earlier that, are you a gospel poet? I was telling that I pick, I appropriate terms from the gospel in the sense that I believe that each person, you're like Paul, and you need to find Timothy's in different states, yeah? So you start something, put a Timothy there, put a group of people, they work on it, and they continue. You start from the barest minimum and just keep going.
Wow, because of time, we used to really what's in the works for you, and if you could collaborate with anyone, past or present, who would it be? Past or present?
Past or present. Oh, in the past, Mary Oliver.
Okay.
Yes, Mary Oliver, thank you. Mary Oliver, Walcott. In present, I mean, I'm already collaborating with a bunch of people.
Okay.
And
but any popular, like very popular, maybe like Lola Shune or...
Oh, yes. Okay. Lola Shune. There's Servio Gbadamosi. Okay. I'm already collaborating with a host of people. So the people.
Interesting.
Yes.
Interesting. In just 10 seconds, what last advice would you like to give to people out there who are looking to break through into the literary world?
As a writer, poet.
I would say you should focus on the work. Focus on the work, because publishing is not the end of it. You get published. You just have to keep writing. Even if you get rejections, just keep submitting and keep writing.
Okay.
Keep submitting. Don't give up. Yeah.
All right, we need to wrap up the show. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Pamilerin. Our word of the day is from Deepak Chopra. Always go with your passion. Never ask yourself if it's realistic or not.
Just go.
Absolutely.
Moving train.
I agree.
Thank you so much for inspiring us. And
if it's money related, okay, it has to be realistic and sustainable.
It has to be. Money backs up, because passion without money, I don't know how that works. Yeah.
All right.
Now, you've shown us that poetry has a place in every conversation, and it can shape personal struggles to societal transformation. And I believe that's what we'll be wrapping up the show.
Yes, so go ahead, follow us on our social media platforms. We'll see you for another exciting time tomorrow at 11.
Bye.
Bye.